We all have those obvious bad habits, right? But what about the ones that are working against you secretly? Well, today we're going to break down 6 habits that might be quietly draining your brain power, one little thought at a time.
So let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like your brain is just stuck in low power mode? It's a super common feeling. Think of this as a quick mental checkup to figure out what might be going on under the hood. If you find it's getting harder and harder to focus, or you're constantly looking back at your decisions thinking, why did I do that? Or maybe you just feel like life is always throwing you curveballs, you are definitely not alone. But here's the thing. Psychological research shows these frustrations usually aren't random. Nope. They often come from very specific, deep-seated thinking habits.
First up is a huge one. Let's call it the instant reaction trap. This is that impulse we all have to act or speak or, type before we've actually had a chance to think. This is item number 1 on our little diagnostic checklist.
Now, there's a fancy psychological term for this, cognitive inhibition. But really, just think of it as your brain's ability to hit a pause button. It creates that tiny, crucial gap between an impulse and your action. A high-powered brain lives in that gap to make better choices. A brain in low-power mode, it just reacts instantly, skipping that step entirely.
And this slide really shows you the difference. A reaction, that's pure instinct. It's that fight or flight mode kicking in when you get an angry text and you fire one right back without even thinking. That's your brain taking a shortcut. A response, on the other hand, that has the pause built in. You think, then you act. And that little pause, that's where all your brain power really shines.
And this leads us straight into our second habit. Because when those instant reactions lead to, not so great outcomes, our very next impulse is often to play the blame game. That need to find someone or something else to point the finger at when things go wrong.
Psychologists call this having an external locus of control. It's basically the belief that life just happens to you, and you're just along for the ride. Now, this isn't some kind of character flaw. It's a mental habit, but it's a really dangerous one. Because when your brain believes it has no control, it just stops looking for solutions. It literally shuts down its own problem-solving ability. Here is the perfect everyday example of that. It's the difference between saying, I was late because my stupid alarm didn't go off, versus I was late because I didn't double-check my alarm. See the difference? The first one just gives all your power away. The second one keeps it, and it keeps your brain switched on, ready to find a better way for next time. Habit number 3 is something you have absolutely seen before. It's often called the Mount Stupid illusion. And it's this weird paradox where, for some reason, people are often the most confident right when they know the absolute least about something. This, of course, is the famous Dunning-Kruger effect. If you've ever seen the graph for this, you'll know what I mean. There's this super sharp initial peak of overconfidence right after someone learns just a tiny bit. That peak, it's informally known as Mount Stupid. It's that dangerous point where you literally don't know enough to even recognize how much you don't know. It's a habit that just slams the door on any real learning.
I mean, we've all met this person, right? The expert at the party who can suddenly explain quantum physics or complex foreign policy because they saw a 15-second video on it. That is the Dunning-Kruger effect in its natural habitat, and it is a massive drain on real thinking. So just thinking about these first 3, the instant reaction, the blame game, and that Dunning-Kruger effect, which one do you think is the most common out there in the world today?
No, seriously, I'd really love to know what you think. Drop your answer down in the comments. It'll be interesting to see.
All right, let's jump back in with our 4th habit, escaping cognitive friction. This is just our natural human tendency to avoid any task that feels, mentally hard. When we're constantly avoiding that mental heavy lifting, our brains can develop something called cognitive rigidity, which basically means they lose their flexibility. It's so helpful to think of your brain as a muscle. If you only ever feed it the junk food of mindless scrolling, it's going to lose its ability to handle complex, challenging ideas. You got to work it out.
Number 5 is a habit that plays out in our conversations every single day. And it's simply talking over listening. Think about the last real conversation you had. Were you actually listening, trying to understand where the other person was coming from? Or were you just waiting for them to take a breath so you could jump in with your next point? An efficient brain prioritizes input. It wants to gather new info. A brain stuck in low power mode is just obsessed with constant and often pretty empty output.
And that brings us to our 6th and final habit, which might be one of the biggest drains on our collective brain power today. It's black and white thinking.
The technical term is a lack of cognitive complexity. It happens when we see everything as an absolute.
It's either 100% good or 100% bad, right or wrong, no middle ground. But the real world, it almost never works like that. It's almost all gray area. And the ability to navigate that complexity, that is the true hallmark of a high-functioning brain.
So, after hearing all of that, you might be feeling a little bit called out. I get it. But here is the most important part of this whole thing. The point isn't to make you feel bad. It's to show you exactly how to recharge.
The really, really good news is that your brain has something called plasticity. That means it can change. It can be rewired. So recognizing these patterns isn't a life sentence. It is simply the first and most powerful step toward upgrading your own mental software.
So, what's your first step? It's actually super simple. Number 1, just acknowledge the pattern when you catch yourself doing it. Number 2, intentionally create that 3-second gap between your impulse and your action. Just pause. And 3, before you blame someone else or jump to a simple conclusion, just ask yourself one word: why? That simple question forces your logical brain to get back in the game.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Your brain is plastic. It is ready and waiting to learn whatever you want to teach it. The only question left is, what new habit are you going to teach it tomorrow?